So, good morning. Apparently it was a very great party last night. If we do a head count today, it was completely full, and today 60, 70, 80. I hope you had a great time yesterday if you attended, and I hope you had a great time during the presentations. Today it's a jammed, packed agenda. Coming up next, you will have Ulrika doing a keynote on operational readiness in AI. But I'm going to kick off continuing the presentation I did yesterday. So I hope you were here yesterday, because otherwise it will probably be a little bit out of context. So let's see if we can get the presentation up. If they're not sleeping. You were also late last night? No. So yesterday we were talking about capabilities and how the next move within AI will be to professionalize. And for some of you, hopefully not all of you, we said that in order for us to be more professional, we need to start lifting ourselves up and putting it in the context of the business side as well. But some of you might have been disappointed that we didn't talk so much about technology. We're not going to talk much about technology either now, but what I wanted to do is to put it in context of a platform. Good. Well, this is something I made up just this morning. No, this is a conceptual AI architecture for many companies. So this is based on some of the best practices and some of the capabilities organizations actually need to be able to put AI into production. So if you have your glasses on, you might be able to read some of these, or you might think this is way too busy, I'll just pick up the slides later on. But I've seen many of these capabilities in organizations in one sense or the other. When you are then putting it into context of capabilities, you could say that many of these are capabilities that you need within the organization. Some, if you're quite immature, you might just have the platform capabilities, or you might have like the query engine capabilities. Sorry, I was singing all night, it was a party. And what you then need to do in order for maturing your AI context and from the technology standpoint is basically to start mapping out how mature you are within the field. So this is a super good way, I've learned the last few years, of actually understanding where you are. And of course, in all my jobs, everything was always green. No. But usually we started with the platforms, we started looking at the different type of capabilities that's needed, and then seeing what is coming up next. Because capabilities come and go as well, and we need to then create a roadmap based on that. So usually, these areas tend to be quite commoditized, and some of these others are not yet even on the market. Understanding then from a data science standpoint, because when we talk about capabilities, you talk to vendors, and we start deep diving into this, it's also important to make trade-offs. Because when you talk to data scientists, there's always going to be, I need an IDE. I need to have access, root access to the servers, and I need all the data. So when we are looking at these topics, we need to also understand where do we want to be strategic in our investments. That basically means from left to right on these topics, where should we be more commoditized? So going on the cloud, going out to one of the vendors, buying a platform, and where do we need to go deeper into the code? And I would say when you're doing this roadmap, you need to be quite strategic and understand where you want to go. Because if you go the commoditized road, you will have less flexibility, but it will be much easier to maintain most of the time. And when you go the less commoditized road, which is always more important to data scientists apparently, you will have more technical depth, more maintenance cost, and it will be harder to have a good overview of everything. It's still early and people are still arriving. So, the keynote is up in a few minutes. What I want to put emphasize in the end here, before I give you some practical tips, because this is a short introduction. Central capabilities. I think I mentioned Meta's blog post yesterday. What we also have started seeing when we talk about these capabilities is that central teams are super good on creating governance and processes, all the fun stuff you want to talk about after a long after work. But in order for you to start scaling up, you need to start looking on how can we decentralize the speed of execution so that the business side can own their own backlog. And I'm not talking about the data mesh concepts because, let's face it, it's way overhyped. What I'm talking about, how can we have central governance, my favorite word in the entire world, but at the same time have decentralized execution. So if you remember the presentation yesterday, I was talking about people, process, technology. My experience is technology, or setting up the platform, is usually a central task. People is usually a decentralized task, except for a core team. Or processes are usually shared. Execution is done decentralized, but created in the central teams. So that was my very short introduction. I wanted to end with some practical tips from one of very good person in the field. She actually wrote a book on designing machine learning systems. And yesterday in the panel, we had a really good conversation about some tips. So data scientists or machine learning engineers. Chip here has actually some really good examples on what you need to learn. Version control, SQL, Python, Pandas, Dask, probability statistic, ML algos, parallel computing, REST APIs. I just wanted to put it there because when I spoke to her a few months back, she's probably one of the leading ones in the field right now. So my recommendation, if you don't follow her on social media, do it because she really knows what she's speaking about. So that was the end of the introduction.